Hi everyone, my name is Courtney and today I'm going to be giving a full review or my full thoughts on Loveless by Alice Oseman. Loveless is about a young girl named Georgia who has kind of been obsessed with love. She loves rom-coms, she loves fanfiction, she loves watching two characters fall in love. But when it comes to her own life, she's never experienced a first kiss, never had a real relationship, and she's a little bit awkward, a little bit shy, a little bit quiet. But she's taking university as a time to figure herself out, discover what she wants, and to try some of those things, along with trying to put herself out there and get some more friends. She's going to university with her two best friends, so from there we just get the journey of her friends, and her trying to figure herself out and fit into this university world. But things become complicated because as she's slowly discovering herself, she's figuring out that kissing, relationships, it kind of grosses her out. She doesn't like it. She doesn't want to do it. So it's her figuring out that she is asexual, aromantic. I have been looking forward to this book, nervously anticipating this book since it's been released, and by other people's comments I was just so nervous that I wasn't going to like this book, but I ended up loving it a lot. I really like this book. So I haven't really talked a lot about this on my channel, but I normally just say I'm queer. I let people interpret it as they will. I'm not hiding my queerness, I'm not hiding my identities, but I've never felt the need to really come out or dive into it deeply. For this book, I really wanted to talk about why this book meant so much to me. In my own personal journey, I figured out pretty quickly that I was somewhere on the asexual spectrum. That was pretty easy for me to figure out. I was much more willing to accept my asexuality before I was able to accept the fact that sometimes I was interested in girls. So pretty quickly I identified as asexual, and slowly I was able to accept myself more, and I was able to accept that I was pan-romantic. And over the past couple of years, as I've figured out more stuff about myself and what this identity means, I've been able to figure out that I am also on the aromantic spectrum somewhere. And in some ways, figuring that out has been really challenging because I love the idea of love, I love rom-coms, I love fan fiction. I'm personally not against having a relationship. I would love that, but when reality comes to hit, I just don't fall in love with people. I don't find myself attracted to people. Sometimes I will be aesthetically attracted to a person and really interested in a person, but a lot of times I just want a really close queer platonic friendship or a queer romantic friendship. And I'm still young, I'm still figuring myself out, so I don't know if I will ever have a romance, and I don't really care one way or the other, to be honest. I want to try it just to try it because why not, kind of a thing. That's where I am with my sexuality, basically. And I wanted to discuss that because I want to talk about how much this book means to me and why this meant so much. So Georgia is discovering her asexuality, her aromanticism, and for me it was just something I could really relate to because it's yes, the idea of love and romance is so fun to read about and it's so interesting, but actually doing it myself? No, that's not really that interesting. And so I really connected to her on that level, right off the bat. She's shy, she's awkward, she doesn't like going to parties. That's not really her scene. And again, that's something I can relate to as an introvert. Not all aro aces are this way, but seeing a character that's really reflective of you or who you were earlier on it's really meaningful. As she discovers herself, there is a lot of anger, there is a lot of resentment at her position, and I personally don't feel a lot of resentment towards my identity, but I think it's really important that Georgia got to be angry, that she got to hate herself, because that is a lot of the experience for people. But as that kind of plot line went on, I was really worried because, I don't want Georgia to be angry at the end of this book. I don't want her to be upset and stuck in the box of I'm aromantic, asexual, that means I can never have a relationship that's meaningful in my life. And so I was so happy because at the end of this book, Georgia's roommate Rooney, who she's been slowly growing closer to, kind of has this big grand gesture moment where she comes to her and is you are my person. We might not be romantically involved, but you are my person. A queer platonic relationship. I wish that had been delved into more, but I'm so happy that that book added that and that was a big part of the ending because that is just so important and it's just so powerful because it's aro aces, wherever you identify, we can have romantic relationships. We might not be attracted to people, but we can be in love. But also, there's a wide spectrum of different relationships. Relationships look a little bit different to us, and having like that representation of like queer platonic relationships, queer friendships, queer platonic soulmates, like that is so important and has been such a big part of my own life. And so getting to see that relationship at the end of the book was just like, ooh, thank God, because this was so good. And like I wish that would have been a bigger part of the novel, but like I'm so glad that it was included. But yeah, this book, I could see so much of myself in it. And the reason why I was nervous is because Aro Ace identities, it's just this wide spectrum. We all experience things so differently, and we interact with sex and relationships in such different ways depending on where you fall on the spectrum. And so I was so worried that I wouldn't like this book because I couldn't relate to the character, but that wasn't the case. Even when things didn't align with our lives, you know, I was still able to connect and see myself in Georgia, and that was just, it was really important to me going into this book. It's not always a big factor in books, but for this one, I needed a little bit of that, to be honest. But this book is also just really careful. I know a lot of people talked about how like, oh, this is just one example or viewpoint of what it means to be asexual, aromantic. You know, it's not the all and be all for all people because again, we're a wide spectrum of experiences. And yes, this is one viewpoint. This is one girl and her discovering and understanding her sexuality. But also, this book is so careful about acknowledging that I don't think that would be a problem for any other readers who might not necessarily identify with Georgia. Like, this book is so careful in its internal musings. The book has plot, Georgia, you know, falling in and out with her friends, Georgia figuring out herself, joining different societies and making new friends. But this book is so internal and so much about Georgia kind of musing and figuring things out and acknowledging things about herself. And because it is so internal, we get so many good caveats or explanations of what it means to be asexual, aromantic, explaining that it looks different for other people. This book is so careful about making sure that that dialogue is there. And personally, I don't want every Aro Ace book to explain those things. I don't need them to. Like, buy a book, we have Google. Google is free. Not every book needs to do that, but the way that this book did it was just so good and well done because it was a lot of like what it means to be Aro Ace. We're not always visibly queer. We don't always experience the same oppression, obviously, that other visibly queer people face. You know, but it doesn't mean that there aren't difficulties because this isn't the oppression Olympics. We're not trying to compare ourselves to what it's like to be visibly queer. And I think this book was just so nuanced and well done about explaining our place in the LGBTQIA plus community and just like what it's like to experience not having attraction at all. If I had gotten to read this book when I was, I don't know, 15, 16, 18, like I can't even imagine how meaningful this book would have been to me because I would have finally gotten to see myself and understand why I didn't feel the need to want these things that other people wanted. So much of our society is so focused on sex, on romantic relationships. Monogamous relationships are the all and be all, and you aren't really seen as an adult until you have those things, until you want those things. This book made me feel so seen because it's like, I'm not broken for not wanting those things. I'm a full person because I'm just a full person. I'm just a person no matter what I want or desire, and I've been kind of rambling, but like, that's what this book does to me. It was a well-crafted novel about a girl discovering herself, about going to college, about finding new friends, and it kind of had that plotless kind of story that all of Alice Oseman's kind of have, which is something that I really like about their books because they feel so slice of life, they feel so contemporary, they feel so real in so many ways. Along with that, those musings, those discoveries, those explanations, while sometimes a little clunky and awkward, just felt so true to like trying to figure out who you are, especially when you're on the aromantic, asexual spectrum. People like to say, why are you trying to identify every little facet of your being? Just be a person. If you don't want to identify as asexual, aromantic, even if you have those feelings, then don't. Like, we're not forcing you to caveat every little specific niche part of yourself, but to get to see myself in a book, to get those words on the page, to get the feeling that those words are important, to have the sense that I'm not just like an internet identity, that these people have been around for so long and that we are a part of the human existence, like that is so, so important. And I can't separate myself from this book because seeing myself in this book was just so necessary and so important in so many ways. I headcanon so many characters on the Arrow Ace spectrum. I see myself in so many different characters, and there's so many times where I fall in love with books because there is not a big strong plot romance, but to have a character that definitively says, like, I'm not going to have these things, I am Arrow Ace, to have a book that identifies friendship as just as important and just as powerful, to have a book that really muses and looks into what it means to be these things. Like, I can't get over how important this book is to me now, and how important it must be for so many young individuals who get to read these words and feel it and figure themselves out at hopefully a younger age than me. I'm in a long queue of people that are praising this book, that are seeing themselves in this book, that are loving this book, and I'm just joining the long line of praises. But to go into this book wondering if I was going to like it, and then coming out not only just relieved, but just so happy that I got to be represented in a way that really did feel like me, was just so meaningful and important. I don't know where I was going with this. I just wanted to talk about this book because Georgia just means a lot to my past self. She means a lot to who I was in university. She means a lot to me, to who I was when I was 20 and 18 and 15, trying to figure myself out. So yeah, this is an Arrow Aces review of Loveless and why it was good, why it meant so much. This book wasn't perfect. Again, there was some stuff that was repetitive, there was some stuff that was clunky, there was some stuff that I wanted a little bit more explanation for, but overall means a lot to me, and it did so much important work. But getting past like the representation stuff, like, it was just a really good story of a girl figuring out who she was, figuring out who her friends were, and those stories are always important to me, and they're always lovely reads for me. I love coming of age stories. So yeah, those are my ramblings, and that's why I loved Loveless, and I hope that other people pick it up and love it too. But thank you so much for watching this rambly review. It might not be the best review I've done ever, but it was really important for me to do. It's a review I've wanted to do for over a year. But thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys later, and happy reading.